This podcast provides a platform for our guests to express their own personal views and opinions. Some or all of these views and opinions may not be shared by Ben and/or Yoel.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast,
the podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce
to inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. We're available on toodadtoquit.com. On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we want to hear your stories, share your stories, so please reach out and spread the word, and we're here to help you and help dads that are going through divorce. This week's episode, we have Bryan Schon, my old high school roommate, and it was really nice to catch up with him. It's been a really long time since I've spoken to him, and we got to catch up on his life. He happens to be, I guess, a money manager for the last 20 years or so. He's got 4 kids. He's been divorced for 6 years, and he really sounds like he and his ex have a pretty good relationship. He was actually on vacation with his kids for winter break, even though it wasn't his weekend, but his ex asked him to take them, and they have that flexibility, which for me was something really nice to see.
Yeah, and Bryan was really grateful you brought him on, Ben, and he's a really another likable, high energy guest. We've been very fortunate to have guests like that. I really liked the takeaways that he had when you asked him about what sort of advice you would give to somebody going through it, just what he talked about in terms of communication and reframing, how you can sort of make it take a positive outlook on things that may otherwise seem not so positive. His openness, his vulnerability, talked about being emotional and crying, and how if you need help, you should seek it. Don't shy away from getting therapy. We talked a lot about relationships, and that was very enlightening. I think our listeners are going to find that to be very helpful. And there's so much more. I mean, I've got a whole, notepad filled with takeaways. So I think our audience is going to find it super insightful.
Yeah, there's definitely, bring a notepad to this podcast. There's a lot of wisdom in there, and Yoel will be so proud of all of you. So let's go. Today we have Bryan Schon. He was born and raised in Michigan, went to high school in Baltimore, Maryland, where he was actually my roommate. He went to college at the University of Michigan. He's been divorced for 6 years. He has 4 kids. He runs a wealth management practice. He loves sports, playing and coaching, hiking, reading, music, and lots of travel. And his kids are the center of his universe. So, Bryan, I'm sad and happy to have you here. It's been way too long. I think the last time I've actually seen you is when I was traveling the country with my mother and stepfather, and we actually went to your house to stay for the weekend. And I basically a phone call, and you guys were like, yeah, sure, come on over. And I think that weekend meant a lot to my mother, actually. So thank you for that. And yeah, so just diving right in, I gave a little bit about your background, but, we really like to let our audience know what makes you, a bit about your family, your upbringing, all those things that were momentous in your life that, kind of stuck with you and made you to the great guy that one of the best roommates I've ever had. Just a genuine guy, and anybody I mentioned that you're going to be here. Our previous guest, actually, Yossi Hachheiser, the judge, was pretty excited that you're going to be on. You just have a great reputation, and so please share some of that story with us.
So thank you for having me. Ben, it's always good seeing you, even though it has been forever. The offer still stands. You're always welcome in my house, whether I'm there or not, preferably when I'm there. Yoel, you too. We're very close. We've known each other for a whole 45 seconds now.
3 minutes.
If you ever find yourself in Metro Detroit area, you're always welcome as well.
Awesome.
Again, so born and raised in Michigan. So I'm one of 6 kids, so I'm number 2. Fast forward, now I have 25 nieces and nephews. So big family. Second generation Holocaust survivor. So like my mother's father was a survivor. My father's parents came over before the war, so that side of the family is actually quite large. Just had our annual Davis Hanukkah party, like 80 people in my house just a week ago, which was quite nice. Regarding travel, I'm in, I would say sunny Florida. Today is sunny. The last few days haven't been so sunny. But
That work or pleasure?
I'm here with my kids. My kids have brought their break. So I have clients in 31 states and 4 countries. Florida being probably the main locale for my clients that winter here. So I'd say probably 50% of my clients winter. So I'm in the winter. I try to come as often as I can to other warm climates, Florida being one of them.
Yep.
And I just call that smart business planning.
Yeah. Smart life planning there.
Yeah, and everybody always talks about good, work-life balance. I can't tell you that I planned it appropriate. It just the happenstance is that it's worked out very well. Clients in Los Angeles and Arizona, clients in Las Vegas and Sonoma, Napa. So it worked out very well.
Nobody in Canada, eh?
I have in Seattle.
Oh wow, okay.
In Seattle, which last summer I spent 2 weeks in Seattle. The last 5 days I went to Vancouver and Whistler, hiked Whistler, which was actually some of my favorite hikes are in Canada. It's not true. I have clients in Toronto.
Oh, wow. I guess
one of the countries.
From Detroit, you probably cross the border a lot.
The border, Windsor border is like a good 20 minutes from my house, so it's very, very close.
Oh, cool.
Toronto's 4 hours away, so it's not so bad. But I'm kind of I had an amazing childhood. One of 6 kids. Very, very blessed. Went to TA where you and I were roommates. I have some of my best memories. Some of my closest friends still to this day are people that I grew up with or people that I went to school with. Some that we stay in touch with real significantly. The others like yourself that are a phone call away, and and it's truly the honest truth is your friendships go beyond. Some of my closest neighbors, who I would say is really close friends, I probably haven't talked to in years, but if they picked up the phone and be like, "Hey Brian, I need X, Y, and Z," in a heartbeat. I think you're the same way. You show up for your people, no matter if they were your people right at this moment. And that's 100%. Just one of the things that I've learned from my father. My father, unfortunately, I lost my father 2 years ago, but he was a very big believer of help anybody that you can, because you never know when you'll need the same help. Not that you're doing it for future help, but you're doing it because you have the ability to. And you never know when you'll be in that same situation. And I kind of think that's what I don't know a lot about your podcast, but I think that's really what it's about, is you've gone through something, deep, and whether you say dark or whatever, it's just a momentous thing in your life, and you're trying to give back, to help others navigate. And that's really what it is. It's navigating. Yep. And, but to take it, a quick step back, graduated University of Michigan, and I got married right after I graduated, got engaged, got married, had my first child at the really old age of 23. And I had a lot of life experience at that moment. But that was kind of what I was groomed for. I finished college in 2.5 years because I was in Israel and everything. And I went to college not with a partying mentality. I went to college with the idea of I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to get a job, to take care of a family, to take care of, to have kids, and to participate in the, greater community. And that's what I did. So from a, good, bad, ugly, that's what happened. And I'm blessed to be where I am today. So without, that process, I wouldn't have met my ex-wife, but I also wouldn't have had my 4 beautiful kids. And I think we all live and learn and evolve. And so I was married. I actually met my ex-wife at university. She was the not roommate. She lived across the hall from one of my best friends growing up. met at I want to say his 20th birthday party in Windsor, Canada. We went to karaoke, and the rest was history. I think we started dating a few weeks later and got married 2 years later. We were together dating and kids probably just under 17 years. And the reality is again, I think just life. I personally don't pinpoint it like this was the time where everything went sour, or it's her fault or my fault or anything of that nature. It was both of us. And the reality is I think I venture to say you would agree is relationships are not easy. I don't know that I knew that in my 20s. I just thought like it was all roses and like, yeah, it's all fun. We're having so much fun. We're in college. It's great. But then you throw in a job and you throw in children, you throw in multiple children, you throw in multiple jobs and travel and all those things. And then you also have a spouse that has needs and you have needs. It's work. And you either you have the ability of both of you putting in that work. And it's not 1 day or 2 days. It's a lifetime of work. And not that it feels like every day is like a chore, because it shouldn't. But at any moment where somebody says, I don't want to put in that work, any relationship is bound to fail. A business relationship, a personal relationship, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, etc. I think personally, if I'm being honest with myself, we weren't great communicators. And that's something that I'm a great, amazing communicator at work, but at home, I just wanted to make everybody happy. I want my kids to be happy, I want my spouse to be happy. My happiness was like third, fourth, fifth down the line. And that's not honestly, it's not a true relationship either. It's like, if I can't tell you I had a bad day, because I never wanted my spouse to know that I had a bad day. I wanted her to just feel like everything was always rosy, but it's not a true relationship. So I don't point fingers. I'm sure I could like pinpoint different things that she did poorly, or they've done a significant amount of things that I did poorly. But later on, 6 years ago, really almost 7 years ago, we determined that it was the right path to, get divorced. And what we did was we sat down and we went for drinks and we said, how are we going to do that? Always best to do under the influence. Makes the conversation way easier. And I wouldn't say there's definitely rockiness and a lot of emotional roller coasters throughout that year-long process. But ultimately, I would say is most of the hard work came like over dinner and drinks. And it was saying, because like, I feel like, no offense to all the divorce attorneys that may or may not be listening, I didn't feel that they did like, any justice. They made things more complicated than less complicated, made things more heated than they needed to be. And ultimately is once we had the ability of getting them out of the room and being able to sit, talk honestly, what's best for our kids. And in my particular scenario, it's like, hey, this is pretty simple. You deserve half, I'll have half. We'll all go on our merry way. It wasn't nearly as simple in the reality, but like that's what we did. We have each other's backs when we need to. We show up for our children every day of the week. I'm not supposed to have my kids over this break, but my ex-wife hasn't been feeling well over the last couple of weeks. So the kids have been with me the last couple of weeks. Am I going to say no to my kids? I'll have them every day of the week if I had a chance. There's not a day that I don't want them. And I know that she's the same way. So like the fact that she had the ability to come to me and say, it's like, Bryan, I need you to take the kids 100%. How could I help? Because my kids' happiness is equally to their mom being happy and healthy.
How old were the kids when this all went down?
So my oldest, crazy as it sounds, my oldest is a freshman in college. So my oldest is 19. So she just did her year in Israel last year, and she's in a freshman at University of Michigan. So go Wolverines, Fiesta Bowl. Let's go national champions, hopefully. So my daughter at that time, and by all means, like I'm an emotional person. That day, and I remember very well when we told my children that we were getting a divorce. We didn't want to ruin their summer. We didn't tell them till they all got back from sleepaway camp. My daughter was 13. My youngest, who is 10 now, was 4. I have a
Wow.
13-year-old, so he was 7, and then I have a 16-year-old who was 10. And we told my daughter first because we thought she probably needed it, and she took a second. She cried. She called her friends. And then she came back into the house because she wanted to be there when we told her brothers. And I remember it very well. Like, we told our kids that we were getting a divorce, and my 13-year-old at the time, he's like, "What? We're getting a horse?" And it really just like let out. It made things like
It
we were
broke
just like
the ice.
laughing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're getting. And for years after, we refer to our divorce as getting a horse. And it was weird. It was very, very difficult to do. That moment actually was probably the hardest thing, is actually telling them that this was going to be taking place. And then it was like status quo for almost a year. We lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, went about our life as it. We traveled together on vacations. And again, trying to like foresee what dating would look like in the future. So she was starting to like download dating apps. I'm like, all right, I need to do that. Again, still sit in the same house. So it was like unique. Our kids, I feel like, forgot that this was actually, that we're going through this divorce. And literally a year later, I moved into a new house and she stayed in the same house. And then we do a 2-5-2. So kids are with me every Wednesday and Thursday. They're with their mom every Monday and Tuesday. And then we switch weekends. So like, I'll either have the kids 2 days a week or 5 days a week. And I remember as my 6-year-old at that time, my 4-year-old at that time, when he turned like 6, 7. So in the last couple of years, he's like, "Dad, your house is really big. Why can't mommy move in?" And it was like, well, mommy and daddy are better friends than we are mommy and daddy. Does that make sense? And he's like, "No." And then he changed the subject.
The year notice, was that like advised to you guys? Because I know a lot, most of the people that we've had on the podcast and people that I know, they like their therapist or whoever told them to just wait till the last minute.
So honestly, like we had our kids go to therapists at the beginning, and some of them, like my 2 sons, kind of, let's say, graduated quite fast. My youngest wasn't there for divorce reasons. He had some, possibly could have been, but it was more like, just like he would get not angry.
Behavior.
Oh yeah, he would get
Yeah.
angry fast. But he grew out of that. My daughter also wasn't seeing a therapist particularly for that. But like, was just another outlet for her anxiety. As I don't know that gave her, it probably did for a little while. So I would tell you is it wasn't right away. So we decided in May of, let's say, 2016 to get a divorce, like between the 2 of us. We didn't tell the children until August. And the problem is you never know when it's going to happen. And the last thing that I wanted to do is have our friends, them hear it from their friend at school, or from a parent at a Shabbat table. Or so my kids have good heads on their shoulders. We're able to have a conversation to the back. Like my, again, 4-year-old at that time had no clue. He had no clue then. He had no clue like when it happened.
Right.
And they really, to my kids' credit, they've done an amazing job. I think it was my 13-year-old probably had the hardest, because he was like my mini me. He was just literally was always at my side. And we were very like, I show up to every game outside of like coaching most things at that time. So if I'm coaching like the older brother's basketball game and the younger brother's there, he's just like, "Well, Dad, can I go home with you?" He'd always want to go home with me. And it was like the hardest thing, because I'd have to like carry him, and he's crying, and I'm putting him in his mom's car seat. And every so often be like, "Yeah, just have a sleepover, just you." And we thankfully had the ability of doing that. And I had an ex-wife who was willing to do that. So like, we believed that was what was right for our child. And the same thing, like my daughter, my older daughter, who was anxious, at moments she's like, I'd really like to stay at mom's. Of course. You want me to drop you there? Like now my kids drive, my 2 oldest drive. So whatever we feel is in their best interest, we'll do at all times.
And I guess support outside of you 2, because it sounds like you 2 kind of figured that out. is she from Detroit also, or?
Born and raised in Detroit too. So her parents are there. Her siblings live in her sister lives in New Jersey. Her brother lives in Florida. My siblings, 4 of the 5 of my siblings live in Michigan. My closest friends, some of my closest friends live in Michigan. Most of her closest friends live there too. We did have a very good support. The hardest thing is we were the first of our friends to get married. We were the first of our friends to have kids. We were the first of our friends to get divorced. So there really was no navigation. So I don't know if you remember, Ben. And if you haven't had, well, I guess you wouldn't have her on the show because she's not a dad. But the idea is like I had only one friend, and I wasn't so close with her at the time, that was divorced, and that was Chevy Ashman. And so I called Chevy, and I'd be like, because I just didn't know how to navigate this. And
Right.
she got divorced for very different reasons. She was very open and honest about it. But so like she was trying to help navigate him through that process for 7 years, and at the end of the day she needed to get out. So like I'm talking to her and she's like, Bryan, the first year is going to be the toughest. Whatever you see, whoever you see, when you see families together like a normal family unit, you're going to feel like you're going to have like this just emotional response.
Yeah.
Totally 100% accurate. I'd see husbands, wives, kids, Shabbases. I'd be watching a movie, like people I don't even know, but they're like, in the movie was like a normal family, even though it was a fake family. I would be like, I'd get sad and I'd be like, oh, like, what did I do wrong? And that's like, which is just a normal response. And ideally is you probably did nothing wrong. I mean, the idea is but it was funny because her guidance to me was somewhat, she was like, this is like, she would tell me, she's like, there's days that I'm just like sitting there crying. And then like you get through the year, and then a year later, you're like, oh my God, everybody should be divorced. You have 2 or 5 days a week to yourself. You can focus on things that you want and not only your kids. This is amazing. And not that I'd ever like say it's like nobody should go into marriage wanting a divorce. Nobody should, but it gives you like a real good, like I used to travel for work. I'd fly to New York for work for 4 hours. I'd fly in, go to a meeting, fly home to be home for dinner. I'd go to LA for 18 hours, fly home. It was miserable, but that was because I wanted to be there for my family. Now I get to go to New York and I could stay there for 5 days. I could spend the weekend in the Hamptons. I go to LA, I could spend the weekend in Napa. I go to Las Vegas and I see clients and I get to like hike Red Rock Canyon. Again, that's just like, I'm saying it's necessarily a benefit. It's just the reality is that there's things I get to do for myself that I wasn't able to do before. And I guess for me is like, the end of the day, it's like, what is there a silver lining? There's like, nobody should want these things. And sometimes they're necessary.
It's I don't know. In my interpretation of it all is kind of, this was plan A, but you need to make the best out of plan B. And
right.
So
thank you, Sheryl Sandberg. What are you taking her book and making your own?
I'm not a reader. That's Yoel's thing. That one's my own.
She wrote a book called Plan B.
But Bryan,
her story is a little different than mine.
Yes, her husband passed away.
Yeah.
Bryan, I just have a question about that because definitely that's something that I've heard before in terms of like you were saying that the reality of what transpires, that you have time to yourself. In retrospect, looking back, do you feel that with more consciousness of the importance of taking care of oneself, do you think that is something that can be accomplished in a marriage? And I'm not saying to look back and have regrets or whatever, but even looking back, but also going forward, let's say in the context of a new relationship, do you feel that realistically one can take care of oneself in the same way, even within the context of a relationship?
So I'd say 1000% if done right. And it's very difficult. It's very different and difficult at different stages of life, right? So when you have like a newborn baby and you're like, that baby is like 100% of your time, they could do nothing.
Right.
And then like, I have a 19-year-old who would love to spend time with me, but she'd equally love to spend time with her friends more than me. So like, and I don't have to wake up in the morning and change a diaper. I don't have a crying, like my 10-year-old makes coffee for me. It's quite amazing. So like I used to have to wake up in the middle of the night, or they'd come into bed with me, or they'd cry, or they had like, now I don't have that. Now I could also like go out like in an evening on my own, and my kids could be home alone. That like, so there's a nuance to life. All I would tell you, and what I would tell anybody who's listening is that, what again, statistically, they say the two biggest reasons for divorce is finances and communication. And I would say it's probably pretty accurate. I would probably choose communication. Finances wasn't our issue. It was probably communication. There's probably a multitude of different things in life, but I think we were very poor communicators. And I say this is not only for divorce or for marriage, but in every walk of life, communication, to be able to advocate for yourself and your own needs. Again, there are times where you have to put somebody else's needs in front of your own, especially when it comes to little kids, or children in general. And sometimes you're going to put your spouse's needs or girlfriend's needs, or significant others' needs in before your own. That's normal too. But if done right, they'll do the same for you. But if you have the ability of going into all relationships with an open mind and an open heart, and the ability to say, this is what I need. You know the things that you were poor at in your previous relationship. I imagine the two of you could list them. I'm sure you have, possibly in previous episodes. I know what I was poor at. I know what I was really good at. I know now today more what I need than what I knew when I was 22, let alone 20. So if you have the ability of verbalizing those to your significant other, verbalizing that, to your business partner, and being able to say, this is what I need to be successful. I need to be able to work out 5 days a week. Need to put it at, so is it in the morning? Is it in the evening? Is it in the afternoon? Whatever it is, I need to be able to go on trips with you. I need to have special alone time, whatever it is. All those things can be done. I mean, we do so much during the course of any given day, so like, how do we accomplish what we do in business? And I can't accomplish the same things in one's life. And that's really, I believe, is the ability of communicating, better, openly, honestly, without repercussion.
Right.
Like,
and without the
somebody
fear,
says,
without the fear of repercussion.
Correct.
A lot of people live in that fear of, if I say what I want, then that person's going to leave. So might as well not say it.
No, very true. And that's unfortunate. But so to some extent, not that I believe it, like it's for a second chance, but because 21st century dating, I don't know, again, your thoughts, I don't know when you guys got divorced, but like I was with the same person for 17 years. And then it's like, like you would meet somebody literally, like I met at a bar almost. It was my friend's birthday party, but it was at a bar. Like now, like, you meet somebody at a bar, they're like, whoa, I'm not going to talk to you. I want to swipe on you, text with you a couple of days, then have a phone call with you, and then we can meet. So ultimately is like, let's take 2 weeks and then come back here, the same place where we are right now. I'd be like, does that make sense? But like, but the world is what the world is. And it's interesting. I mean, Aziz Ansari also wrote an interesting book on what is it, modern romance or something like that. And he talks about back in like the 50s, it was easy. You dated your 5-block radius. You dated somebody in your apartment complex. Like now you have like a global dating app. You literally could choose a place. I'm going to Buenos Aires in 2 weeks. I'm going to start swiping in Buenos Aires. If you decide that you want to pay the $19.99 to Bumble or wherever, which I refuse to do, which is why I don't have dates when I go to Buenos Aires. But the nature of it is like, talk to my friends who live in New York. It's always like the next best. It's like, this person is quite amazing, but the next one may be better. I don't have that issue in Michigan, because the dating pool is really small. Unfortunately, there's just not enough people. So that's why I have to go to Florida and LA and to New York. But ultimately, it's an eye opener. I mean, it's been 6 years. It's almost like a second job, third job. And sometimes I have to retire for a few weeks or months because it's just tiresome. But I don't
And
think
I'll ask you what Yoel's chopping at the bit to ask. Are you looking to get married again, or just looking for someone to date, or have you not figured that out yet?
Wait, Yoel, wait. You say the words you want to say, because like that was like a very like intriguing way to say it, Ben. It's like, would you like to like date or get married again? It's like, do you want to screw around for the rest of your life? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand. So
I actually had a different question, but let's roll with Ben's question for now. But yeah,
right.
exactly.
So
Ben, you got to spill it out.
Again, great question. And again, I don't shy. I prefer to be in a relationship. I like being in a relationship, but a healthy, open, honest, like loving relationship, right? So that is what I want. My end goal, whether that's marriage, because I'm not afraid of getting married, not at all. My preference is to have like a loving spouse or whatever we want to call it. It doesn't end up with like a ring on the finger or vows in another wedding, or it's somebody that we're committed to together for the rest of our lives. That is my preference. To get there is a whole nother story, right? So I would tell you, and I would tell anybody who's listening, my honest truth is don't assume if you're dating somebody right after they're divorced or going through a divorce that's going to be your person. Sometimes that happens, but like when I was going through my divorce, how do you get to that person? You have to start dating. But you're going through this huge emotional response. Like, I'm not ready for marriage. I'm not ready for a committed relationship. But how do I get there? By going on a bunch of dates. So is that really fair to those women? Well, I don't know. I mean, like they got to meet like a really cool guy. They got a free meal, a free drink. I don't know. But like I would say it is. And I say the same thing. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, literally because they don't tell you on the dating apps. And she's like, oh, I'm going through a divorce. I was married for 3 years. I'm going through a divorce. I'm like, that's wonderful. Not wonderful. I'm sorry. Sorry you're going through that. Thankfully, you don't have kids. In a year from now or 7-8 months from now, you're interested in dating and you haven't found your person, call me. I do not want to be your rebound. Like I personally needed that. I imagine the two of you needed that. I would say seldomly doesn't happen is like that person, like your first 3 dates post-divorce are your end person. You're not in an emotional space to do that. I'm 6 years out. Like I honestly feel that dating sometimes is super fun when you have the right person. And so many times it's a chore. And that's sad, but that's how I feel. But I won't find that person unless I play the game, right? So I travel a lot. I want to travel with somebody. I've been blessed in life I want to share it with somebody outside. Like I want to share it with my children, but I want to share it with somebody. But I've been to some of the most romantic places on earth by myself. And I'm not going to stop living because I don't have a partner, but I will continue living, hopefully to find a partner and get to continue to enjoy life with.
Are you open to, based on, this was actually my question, but Ben's question was a good segue to this, based on what you were saying before about having that sort of freedom, if you will, in terms of the days off that to take the time for yourself, would you be open to starting another family with somebody, having more children, for example? Is that something that you'd be open to?
So that's a very good question. And I've had multitude of these conversations, and it's circular because there is no one answer. In a perfect world, I would tell you, I prefer not to have more children. Now, that does not mean that if I find somebody who has children, that I can't make, like, I love children. And my previous long relationship with somebody that I dated for 2 years, she had a daughter. I looked at that daughter for those years as my daughter. I treated her as such. Her parents, her siblings, they were my family. I love them. I love them to this day. It didn't work out for a multitude of reasons, but none of that scares me. I've been introduced to people with 4 kids, and I have 4 kids. That scares me a little bit, to be totally honest. That's like 8 kids. I have more kids than the Brady Bunch. But ultimately, I would tell you, you find the right person, you make it work. And it's also timing, right? I'm 42 years old.
Hmm.
I have 4 beautiful kids. What I am worried about is like, let's say I find somebody in 2 years from now, because of what I've gone through, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are, both of you. But because of what I've gone through, like when you're 20, you start dating, you talk marriage, like you just don't, you never see like the bad. Like there is no bad. Like you don't see, like you don't go into marriage or a relationship like, like how is this going to go wrong?
Hmm.
But when you go through a divorce, you and you have kids, you're like, well, are you a good role model to my kid? I know you could be a good spouse or a loving girlfriend, but will you be a good like role model? Will you like love my children like I love my children? Are they second class citizens or first class citizens? Like how can it go wrong? And like how do I prepare for that? Which is like a sad thing, but that's like I will 100% have a prenup. Like so you're already preparing for the worst before it even happens, which is kind of sad but necessary. So I would tell you is like I don't want to have, like I don't really want like my daughter to be 30 and I have a baby, like a brand new baby. So like there's like this medium ground of, if I found somebody today that was so amazing, I want to make sure that our relationship is solidified, that, and then let's say then we get married, and then we'd be like, okay, well, let's make sure our marriage like works, like, so let's not do this, rush this right away. So like I don't want to have a baby like month 1, right, or like 9 months later. How long is that? Is that a year? Is that 2 years? Well, suddenly I'm 46, I'm 47. And again, I don't know, maybe it'll happen faster under the right circumstances. I don't want 2, 3, 4 more kids. If I had one, it's always that the idea is like how every situation again different. If the new spouse was married and has a child, how is their ex-spouse? Were they nice? Are they like a good influence on that child, on their child? Are they, because that person's going to bring that into my house. So I've always had this conversation with myself. Is it better to have one child with like a new spouse and it's my child, like my biological child? Because I know I'll, I don't know, again, like, toot my own horn, but like, I know I'll be a good dad and I'll be a good role model and I'll be a good spouse. And they won't have any of that backdrop. Or do I start with whomever, like, I don't want to say issues because I hate the word baggage, because it usually tends to be used to be about children, which is, I think, is the worst thing ever. So I don't have an answer for you. The answer is like, let me find the right person, and from there we'll decide together. And that's all I could recommend for anybody else. It's a game to find that person that you can love, and it's like, then again, what is it? It's a conversation.
Yeah. And are most of the women that I mean, you mentioned being in a relationship for a couple of years, is it through the apps that you find that that you've been using to facilitate your dating life, if I could ask you, or has it been through mutual friends that are setting you up, or how has it happened, or different ways, different times type of thing?
Well, I mean, it's manna from heaven. It doesn't happen for you. It's like a Super Mario game. It's like once I end the relationship, it's like, and then somebody pops up. No, just me. That's so weird.
Yeah, just you, Bryan.
It is with I would say is the one that I've had the longest is somebody that I knew but didn't know well. And a friend of mine told me that she was going through a divorce. And anytime I hear somebody that I know that's going through a divorce, I feel like the need, not less now, but there was a time where like my generation of friends in Michigan didn't really have people, like didn't have the Chevys that I, like the person that I had, that I went to. So I always would reach out and be like, been there, done that. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. And I did that with a handful of people, and other people referred other people to me, and kind of like just kind of helped each other, kind of create our own little community of, those who've been through it. And through that, it was, my kids are about to come in here because I hear them. So I'll just tell them to go into another room in a second. Sorry. Can you guys go into your room for a second? I'm just on the phone. All right, perfect. Actually, let me actually move, because sorry about that, guys.
All good.
Because
You got the TV
I
room?
guess sensitive information, right? Let me turn this. Sorry. How do we do this? There we go. But I'm not sure. But what I would tell you is, so yeah, in that particular situation, I actually did a Facebook message, did that. She's like, thank you. We chatted a little bit. And then like a month or two later, I kind of reached back out. And that was really my own legwork. Somebody told me she was going through it. And then it was my own legwork to create the first date. And then we dated for 2 years, part of it of which was COVID. And it was probably, it was quite an amazing feeling when you find somebody who you, after your spouse, you'd be like, wow, I can love again. Because like, you don't know, like when you go through divorce, like, oh, is there something wrong with me? Did I just, you just feel like broken in many different ways. So, so I give her a significant amount of props for allowing me to love her and her loving me, and it didn't work out. But that doesn't make, and I have no hard feelings for her, and I hope she doesn't for me. But majority of the time, yeah, it's swiping right and left, which is quite crazy. And I have also a really crazy thing is, I don't know, again, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I have like 2 single friends that have never been divorced or never been married. Take that back, nor divorced. And so majority of all of my friends are married with kids. And now some of them have been divorced since then, but majority of them not. So like if I went on a Monday or Tuesday, when I'd be like, hey, let's go out for drinks or let's go out and do this or that, like, well, they have a family, they have their kids. Like, it's not easy for them. Like, they could do it like ever sporadically. So guess who I found as like, where was I finding single people? People that I went on 1, 2, 4 dates with who are not my person, but they're really good people. So some people that I travel with are people that I met on Bumble, people that I met on J-Swipe, somebody that I met on Hinge or whatever these apps are. And I'm okay with that. You're a good person. I'll keep you in my life. To me is like, I'm a big believer of bringing as many good people in my life as possible. It may not be my lifetime person or my lifetime partner. Doesn't mean you can't be my friend or it can't be yours.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. So whatever. I don't know. I'm looking for a role model and a life partner and marriage and my dream as a child. It's still my dream. So that's where I stand. So I feel like, I don't know, Yoel has more experience in this regard as far as what's out there and how that is, and I guess life experience in that area.
Well, Ben, how long have you been divorced?
Like 2.5 years.
Okay. When you say more experience in that regard, you're referring to dating?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find it, you live in Israel, correct?
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult? Because to me, it's like Israel seems like it'd be like the winter wonderland of dating, like New York City. Everybody's fit in Israel. Like in Michigan, it's like the most obese state on earth. No offense
I hear
to
you.
anybody listening to Michigan.
No, I hear you. I don't know. I've been trying to survive pretty much the last 2.5 years. So I'm still in that stage.
But that's the beauty of, we're all individuals, right? There were like the first year I was forcing myself to do things that I probably didn't want to do nor was I ready to do, but I felt like I needed to do the motions to get through it. And everybody's motions are different. Everybody's emotions are different, and everybody's motions are different, right? So we all need to look at ourselves and decide, what do we need to do? Sometimes it's just like work. I mean, like, I believe I worked a ton on communicating. Like, I over communicate everything. Like, everybody knows how I feel when I feel it, because like I feel that's how important it is, and that's how lacking I was.
Right.
And, it could be for business, or it could just be like kids. Like, hey, I just want whatever it is. Everything is kids all the time. But what I would venture to tell you is you need to worry about you too. Because if you can't be the best you can't be the best dad. You can't be the best future partner for that person when you find her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't agree more, Bryan. And Ben and I have had this discussion a lot. And yeah, like I've talked about it in the sense of, maybe this is a bit more, I call it like, heebie-jeebie style, but I've talked a lot about the whole idea of identity. And I don't know if this is different than what you're saying, if you'll find it different or similar, but I always say that definitely being a dad is extremely important to me. Of course, I love my kids. I've got 5 kids. My oldest is also 19, a boy, not a girl, or a man, I should say at this point, or versus a woman that you have. But being a dad, I don't consider that my identity. Like I've learned, mostly since I've sort of gotten to be more conscious since my divorce, that there's much more to me than just being a dad. And that for me is very much tied to what you're saying about taking care of myself and doing things for myself. That's not to say that I lead the most exciting life necessarily. I'm not jumping out of airplanes every day, but even like you were saying before, like in the very beginning, I was, taking a weekend vacation every 2 months. I'm fortunate to live in the Middle East with a climate where I could go to the beach, which is pretty close by. And, Ben was referring to dating. So I also I definitely was not ready, but I definitely started dating pretty quickly after divorce. That's a whole other story, but so, I totally agree with you, Bryan. If I understood you correctly, it's kind of like sort of making sure that you're taking care of your own needs, which will, in essence, allow you to be the best possible father in return. Is that kind of what you were also saying in a similar idea?
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the end of the day is like whether it be any mechanical thing in life, right? So whether it be like your car, you don't put in gas, you don't change the oil, you don't fix the carburetor, doesn't work.
Right.
Your own, whether it be your own spiritual needs, your own physical needs, your own personal mental health needs, you need to take care of yourself. How
Right.
how could you constantly run on empty and then have, in your case, 5 children to take care of? Ben, you have 3 or
5.
Also 5.
5? All right, for some reason, maybe like couldn't remember the last pictures that I saw. So 5. Okay, so like between the 3 of us, we have 14 beautiful kids. So without again taking care of ourselves, and I think it's really kids look at that. Kids are constantly looking at their parents and be like, oh, do we eat well? Do we not? Do we travel well? Do we not? Do we go to the religious schools? Do we not? Whatever it is that are important in our lives, that's what they're constantly looking at. And they model after that. I remember growing up, the first 3, like I'm one of 6. And, as you have more and more kids, things get more expensive. So we used to go on really, really nice vacations with the first 3 of us. And then suddenly we started going from like California and Disney World and Hawaii. And then we were going to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, to Canada's Wonderland. And we had, by all means, if I look back and I'd be like, I have no complaints about my childhood. It was actually a quite amazing childhood. But I always wanted, my friends, like they were traveling to Europe, they were doing other things, and all of that as like or you'd be like, my father was the president of the shul. He was very involved in the community. Well, I wanted to because I wanted to be like my dad. He always played sports. I loved playing sports. So our kids see the things that we're doing. So if you're taking care of yourself, they're seeing that. It's important to you. If mental health is like, because for so long mental health was like taboo. Talking about it was very, very taboo. And
Therapy
then
also,
suddenly,
right? Going to see a therapist. Sorry to cut you off, Bryan, right? Like that would tie into mental health, wouldn't it?
oh,
Like,
for sure,
yeah.
1000%. I think in our childhood it was like, and it's not normal. Now
Yeah.
it's like the opposite. It's like, oh, you're not normal if you don't have a therapist.
Very, very
How
well
could you be
said.
normal? You're not talking to anybody.
Right. Right.
But and it doesn't have to be a therapist, or it could be a good friend, but being able to talk through your issues with somebody. But also to tie into Yoel is at least for me, And again, it's very, very different because every community is different and every individual is different. But, at least for my 2 cents is modern Orthodox Jewish life is geared towards husband, wife, children, community. So
Totally.
once you follow through, once there's no husband, there's no wife on opposite weekends, how are like when you don't have your kids, how are you treated in the community? Now, I don't believe I've been mistreated in the community. I think actually my community is quite amazing. But do I want to spend all that time with my friends and their kids when I don't have my kids? And then you start, like, again, don't know what you guys do, but like, to me, is like Shabbat is a different experience today when I don't have my children than when I did. When I travel without my kids, it's a different experience than when I do. And that's not how it was when I was married, because like everything else was quite normal. But to have a 24 or 36-hour period, whatever it is like, and be by yourself, again, some people, it's very, very easy not to turn on a television or not to play on your phone or not to do whatever those things that everybody else in the world does that maybe when you're religious you don't do. And I would tell you, without beating an eyelash, and apparently this is recorded and other people could see, is I do those things because it's like what is important in life to me is different today than it was before. And a part of that is just life experience. To me, is being a good human, right? Being a good role model, being a good friend, showing up for the people around me, showing up for my community when they need me. Not like, oh, is my light on in my refrigerator on Shabbat? Or did I, watch a game when I didn't? Now, again, for those people that do those things, I love them just like I loved them before. And I hope that they would love me just like they loved me before, whether they knew or I do or did not do those things. Most of my friends, honest truth, whether they would admit it on a recording or not, most of my friends do those things. They just don't tell people that they do those things. But and it's funny, but like it is what it is. Like those things are less important, especially as I'm finding somebody. Ben, I don't know where you're at in that process. It is tough, maybe less so in Israel, but it is tough to find, like, we're already a needle in a haystack in terms of like a dating pool, in terms of like a religious, modern Orthodox Jew. Like you try to find that with somebody divorced, 5 kids, like it's tough. So you have to then, I would say more people, I date more conservative reform women. And the idea is like, they have to be open to the way I live and I have to be open to the way they live. Now, I may do some things that and I'm okay with that. Because I really just want a good human and a good role model and a loving, caring person. Those are hard to find outside of it.
The irony in all of it is I always said I could not move to Israel until I was married because there were too many fish in the sea. Yeah. So that turned out well.
It's way difficult. I mean, like the idea is there's a lot, but like it's way more difficult. There's too many people. I don't know, like Yoel, what your thoughts are. I'm open and honest. Like on my app, it says that I have kids. There's always like a game. Like, do you tell them now? Do you tell them later? Like, why tell them now if I don't like them? I'll go on a date if I don't like them.
It's Yoel's favorite game.
Oh yeah, I love. I always joke, first of all, the apps. I'm dating somebody now, but we met like the old-fashioned way. Just at it wasn't even a Sabbath table. It was a regular weekday meal. Funny enough, as it is, the apps themselves, I've not been too into them, but on the apps, I definitely mentioned that I have kids. But I always joke, like, prior to dating the person I'm dating now, when I did, when I would meet women and I would sense some interest in the discussion, I would always sort of like feel that sort of pending doom the minute the subject of like children came up. Not that I'm not proud of my kids, but I just knew, because virtually every time they would ask me, oh, so you have kids? I'm like, yeah, how many? 5. I would instantly see like the faces just like drop. Obviously not everybody, because the person I'm going out with now, she's cool with it. But, and I'm sure there's many women that are totally cool with it, but the reality is it has been, many people are intimidated by that, which I understand. I can't fault somebody for feeling that way,
No, so. I mean, better to, it's like the premise is also like, like me for me first, make sure you like me.
Right.
And then the rest kind of like will fall into place. But it is like if you have no kids or if you have one kid, like it makes it difficult.
Right.
But that's just the reality of life. So, um, and as our kids age, I'm not sure if it becomes easier or less easy. I don't know that it does or it doesn't. So, so I hope it works out. And then I thought I had my last first date, and unfortunately that did not work out.
Mm.
But
How was it? I'm curious, because something I've talked a lot about as well is, I was married for 18 years, and I've had this feeling that I could, I've been open about this, the pain that I've experienced, in terms of losing, in terms of the marriage going south. And, I feel that there's no relationship that would make me feel the same amount of pain if it didn't work out. So I'm just curious, like, you've been there, like you had a 2-year relationship, and unfortunately, like you said, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Do you feel that because you've kind of gone through what you went through in terms of divorce after so many years of marriage, that, you're kind of, I'm trying to think of the right words. I don't want to say like maybe thicker skinned. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you know what I mean? Like, the pain of divorce, kind of makes the pain of a breakup much less so. Does that make sense what I'm asking? I don't know if I'm being clear. It's also,
no, I
for our
hear what you're
listeners,
saying.
it's almost 1
So-
a.m. So my
so-
thoughts are not very
So yeah, so good. I guess I appreciate you guys doing this.
No, I appreciate you being here for sure.
And in my old age, look, I don't have the wherewithal anymore. Like my knees hurt when I play basketball. And
I've got Ben
I
pushing
get
me.
really
That's
tired.
what Ben's for.
Right. Um, I'm a very big believer. Again, me. Not everybody's like so different. Every individual is so unique in their own way.
Yeah.
So like I love hard. I love deep. I'm intimate. Like all these like things in a relationship. Like if I'm in it, I'm in it. Like there's no like second gear. It's like full throttle. Like like I will do anything for you whenever I can, however I can. So if you're in a relationship like that and it doesn't work out, it hurts. But when it hurts, you know that it was real. At least to me, that's how I know it was real. Because if it didn't hurt, like it's like if a tree
Like a
falls in the
hamburger.
forest and you didn't make a sound, but like the to me is like it was not. Honestly, if I look back, I would say is that probably hurt more. And I don't, and it's a weird thing
What
to
hurt
say
more?
maybe
Sorry.
out loud.
What hurt more? Sorry.
That last breakup.
Wow.
Because I also, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was able to picture the rest of my life. Who is that person to be in the rest of my life? Her daughter used to FaceTime me like literally twice a day. That went away.
Wow.
So that took a long time
Wow.
to process. And like, I mean, it also happened around the same exact time, like 2 weeks after, like my father passed away. So like, it was like a double whammy. And like, but that my father, unfortunately, like I knew was happening. Like it was unfortunate, an eventuality. So I knew that was going to happen whether sooner rather than later. I did not think that. I was designing a ring with her sister. I asked her parents' permission. And so to me, it came out of the blue. Like I did not know that it was like, so like, but like, again, I learned a ton from the experience. I was not ready for that. I did not expect it. But at the same token is I would do it all over again in a heartbeat because I know how I felt when I was in that relationship and it felt quite amazing.
Wow.
So talking about doing things over again, I've been having this thought, I guess, the last week or so about, I guess, when you're with somebody so long, you have these shared memories in certain places and things that you do. Have you, and like kind of the trauma of experiencing them again? And what I've sort of kind of been doing, like I took my kids to San Diego, where we lived when we first got married, and we actually stayed in the same town, and I went to the same synagogue with the kids this time, and it was kind of like cathartic for me to like create new memories of those places. instead of every time I think about them, I think of what was and what could have been and et cetera, et cetera. Have either of you experienced that or have any of that trauma from going, like, you live in Detroit and you've been in Detroit, and it sounds like your new person was also in Detroit. Like, you must have memories everywhere you go. So, like, how do you deal with that?
So I think that's a good question. I think everything dissipates in time, right? They say as time heals all wounds.
That's what they say.
And yeah, I do. Like I don't necessarily truly believe that, because I actually remember using that line in several emails to my ex-girlfriend, who she probably was not happy that she got so many emails, because like I was not ready to let go. And like, you know, they're like, because it was like, yeah, don't worry, in due time. Everybody says that, right? And I'm like, but it honestly, for me, time helps, circumstance helps, finding somebody else or being able to, like, you know, envision it. I'm a very big believer of manifest destiny, and the premise of manifest destiny, not necessarily, you know, the origin of manifest destiny. But the, you know, the idea of what we have the ability of creating. So envision what you want, go after it, create it yourself, because nobody else is going to create it for you. So again, you're an individual who has shared memories, and those memories are very hurtful. Now, I used to do that going to the movies. That's silly. I go to the movies with my kids every Thursday, most Thursdays.
Oh,
It's like
really?
movie
Oh, that's
night.
awesome. I'm a big movie guy too. Amazing. That's cool.
And
Love that.
but it was weird. Like, you know, you'd see everybody, the husband, wife, kids, and like suddenly I'm husband or whatever, dad, whatever. Again, so that, but I'd see that and it would be like, whoa, that's like and I would have an emotional response. I'd have an emotional response to, like what I was telling you before, to in the movies. This is like a fake, like, you know, like fictitious, like, but happy people, like at a Christmas
I
table, at a Hanukkah table, whatever.
I change
Those,
channel all the time.
you don't know how many times I've cried. I'm a very emotional, very much like you. Like, I cried hundreds, thousands of times. And I still do that. Like, you know, like it doesn't matter. I go to a funeral that I don't know of a person, but I hear their story and I'll cry. So I have a significant emotional response. All I could tell you is, like, I don't know. I'm not a negative person. I don't wish ill on anybody, myself included. Yes, do I have memories? Yes, I like looking at like old pictures, and that's like the cruelty of Facebook, right? The cruelty of Facebook is constantly giving me like old memories of of myself and my ex-spouse. But look, those aren't bad memories. Those are still good memories. So everything is the ability of saying, like, you could look at it, and I actually, this is something I tell my kids all the time, is about reframing, and also the lens that you use to look at the world. We have the ability to choose the lens. So you could wake up every single day. I mean, you know this in Israel, let alone anywhere else in the world. You know, wake up every single day and look at the atrocities that's going on, the horrible things that people are doing, the corporations that are doing, politicians that are doing. Doesn't matter. People being raped and killed, whatever it is. We could wake up and we could not want to get out of bed because look at all these terrible things. Or we have the ability of waking up and looking at all the beautiful things. Now, the reality of life is that it's a mixture of the both. But like, I don't listen to them. I don't actually watch the news other than business news. I don't watch the news. It's my choice because I don't want to know about those things. I know they exist, but how is that helping me? Right. So like you have a choice in my mind, Ben, of looking at those memories and be like, oh, those are traumatizing because they included somebody I'm not with anymore. Or you could be like, wow, we created amazing memories with our kids, for our kids at that time. Um, and now we're here making new ones. Those memories were not bad memories, unless somebody was yelling and screaming and beating your child, which I don't think is what you're referring to. Is they just include somebody who you're not with anymore. And again, I don't know the whole story, your whole story, and everybody's story is a little bit different. Some are like really bad, and some of them are less bad, and some of them are just like, most of them are probably somewhere average in the middle. I don't look at my divorces like, you know, it's not a negative. It's just something. It is when we decided to go through it, it was the right thing to do. And how do we make the best of it? Because this is what's happening. So I could be angry all the time, And I could be mad at the world, I could be mad at the spouse, I could be mad at like the attorney, or I could be like, you know what? Those things are out of my control. What is in my control is my own happiness, my kids' happiness, showing up, doing all of those things. Again, if making new memories is what's important to you, do that. If you need to recreate them, those same ones, do that. For me personally, I come to Florida all the time. We always came to Florida. We always did all these things. We go to the beach. We did like, but every time I go to the beach, am I gonna? I don't. It actually doesn't cross my mind to be like, oh, she used to be here and she's not now. Excuse me. So I'm personally not going through that anymore. And I don't know that it was really specific to like a place. It was more a togetherness. And until I was able to break that, the idea is those happiness doesn't come like, it's like we don't need these two people to be together to be happy. I could be happy, she could be happy, our kids can be happy in both houses. I don't know, that's the way that I
Yeah,
try
no,
to look at the world.
it sounds like you're very lucky that you had a lot of we involved in all of this. And that changes perspective a lot.
Well, that actually, that was kind of my question. And I'm not speaking about Ben or myself, but I would ask you generally, let's say for our audience out there who may feel that they've had a different experience in terms of their relationship or uncoupling with their ex-spouse. Let's say there was animosity, and again, I'm not speaking of either of us. I'm just speaking, in generalities. Excuse me, in generalities. If let's say they had a very sort of acrimonious divorce and ongoing communications are difficult, do you feel, Bryan, that one can still take the approach that you've had to say, well, despite what's going on now, that's something, yes, that I have to contend with and find a way to handle to the best that I can, but I can still look back at past good times that we had and sort of reframe that? Like, do you believe, my question is, do you believe what you were saying would only work in the context of an amicable type of divorce? And again, I don't know the full context of your situation either, but generally speaking, or is it something that you feel that somebody could really apply regardless of his or her situation?
I think we all know people who had it really terrible, and some of them that had it pretty easy, and then some that have been like somewhere in between. And there are moments in time, I learned a ton throughout mine. There's moments in time where I was like not a happy person, like how it was going through it. So, or it was just like, to me, it's like going to the dentist. Like, I have like this gut reaction to the smell of the dental office, and I just like, and I have that same reaction now going if I ever have to go in or past my divorce attorney's office. So it's not like everything was like just like rosy. And it was super easy. During that process, it was actually quite difficult and tough, but we got through it. There were moments in time where we had to kind of kick the attorneys out of it and kind of just push things forward on our own. Honestly, like, when you can do that, some people can't be in the same room. Some people can't talk. Some people have literally, for a multitude of different reasons, it's just about who's yelling the loudest. And those are real situations, and they're hard. And when you're going through them, they're gut wrenching, and you may cry, like whatever. You'll have an emotional response. So it is. All those things are difficult. I can't tell. I don't know that I throw away, shared memories, but like, those memories will be with you till the end of time. And those memories, if they were happy memories for you at that time, they were real happy memories. And then over the course of time, like any memory, certain ones fade and some of them rise to the top. There are times in life that you as an individual need to be tough, and you need to not be a pushover, and you need to do what you believe is right for your children. And sometimes that can be very contentious. I would tell you, though, my personal belief is many times those feelings are just feelings and it's not the reality. And when I say that, is that you think this is right. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who has been divorced twice. So she has 2 kids with one and 1 kid with another. And her first divorce was very amicable and get along great. They and her second one, not so great. Father doesn't listen to the court. Father doesn't communicate well. Father berates her. Father so everything always has to go through the court. And all she wishes is that, this second spouse who's a doctor and he's very accomplished, could just act like an adult, but he can't for whatever reason. So she has a choice. Is what do I do? I need to fight for what I believe is right for my child. So I have to hire an attorney. I have to yell and scream louder than you have to yell and scream. That's not good for anybody. I guess I could ask for any parent who's watching this is that don't make your kids privy to that. And that the harder thing is you may have one spouse who'd be berating you to their kids, and that's tough. I'm blessed that that's not my situation. I will not berate my ex. I will not. She doesn't berate me. We may not disagree, may not agree on everything, but that's never been the case. But I would say is just keep them out of it. The idea is show up for them always, both of you, and that's something you could actually have a conversation about. Doesn't mean that they'll listen, but the idea is again, it just goes back to mimicking. Kids are not stupid. If mom wants to berate dad, so be it. Doesn't mean that you have to berate mom. Kids will see it. Kids, always see it. But kids will also ask questions. And you could have that as a conversation. It's yeah, mom is angry for whatever reason. I can't act that way. I will not act that way, which also is somewhat passive aggressive. But that you have to do whatever you feel you need to do in those situations. So nothing is in a perfect world. You could only control yourself and the way that you want to be. It's treat others like the way you want to be treated. You could only do that. But there are times where and I've seen this with lawyers. My ex had a lawyer who felt that because she's yelling the loudest that she's winning. I'd be you're not only is she yelling, she's making stuff up. So then I needed to, at a certain point in time, I was very, very passive. I'd be whatever you want, take. Those things aren't I'm good at making money. You want money? There, take it. And then at a certain point in time, it was well, now I'm being taken advantage of constantly. I'm okay, anytime you want something, hire an attorney because that costs you money, not me anymore. And then suddenly those things stop. So there was a time where it was very easy. And then there was a time where I can't make it so easy. But it always comes back to my kids never knew anything about that. They never saw it. They never heard it. They never needed to. Because all I wanted, again, I want their life to be smooth. I want their vision of their mom, their vision of their dad to be no different than it was before, even though life has changed. Life has changed and it will change. And you want to be able to openly, honestly communicate with them. And you should constantly ask them how they're feeling. And it doesn't matter what age, because sometimes they just don't want, they feel it's a burden to you. They don't want to bring it up because I could see you hurting as the parent. But it's our job to make sure that they're just we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, that we're also taking care of their needs, not only physical needs, but also their mental, emotional needs.
Yeah. And speaking about that, has your parenting changed at all? Has your relationships, was it different after the divorce with the kids? Better, worse, different?
We've definitely enforced corporal punishment now. No, I'm just kidding. Probably shouldn't say that on
I'll cut it out. Don't worry.
Okay.
I will cut it out.
But no, you know what? We're so different. So there's so many. I'll give you a good example, which has nothing to do with parenting. But I'm relative. If you go into my house today, I'm somewhat OCD. Not clinically OCD, but I like things clean. And
You're my
kids would
roommate.
complain. What?
I said you were my roommate.
Yeah. So I like things orderly. I like things clean, and I like whatever. I just I like to know where things are. And my kids would always complain, we don't live in a museum. And I'm blessed to have a beautiful house. And I'd be when you're with me, you live in a museum. Clean up after yourself, put your stuff in the hamper, make your beds. I don't ask for a lot. And I have a housekeeper. So But it's funny. So, but when I lived with my ex, she was the exact opposite. So like, I kind of just like, all right, like it was like, I'd have to take the anxiety meds, not really, but like, just because I can never saw the floor of my closet, like things were cluttered everywhere. Um, so like, like again, my house is like super clean. Like I didn't have that before. So they see the differential there. Parental style is like, I have to imagine the answer is yes. I want to say, and not in a good or a bad way, I think both parents, like certain things are really important, but certain things are less important to me. I mean, like grades are important, but like, life is important. Like being able to like play basketball and do those other things. Like I'd let them stay up late when maybe I shouldn't, maybe they're a little bit tired because I like to do a movie night or a game night or and it was always, I was always said, you don't have to be the fun dad. I'd be like, I could be like just a dad. I'm not trying to be the fun dad. I'm just trying to be dad. And like, this is the way that I parent. Just doesn't mean that, when you parent, you'll parent differently. And that morphs and changes constantly. It does, because like I've had different challenges with each of my children, and I'm, again, they're just, yeah, everybody's different. Um, you know, and trying to help each of them go, like, rise up to those challenges. And I would do that maybe a little bit differently than my ex. Eventually we have to come together because certain things need to be solved. Again, we're blessed to be able to rise above and kind of just go get to the root of it. And I know that is like, again, like it's not everybody has that. So I'm blessed to be able to be one of those people, even though like there are moments in time where it's not as easy as I'm making it. But I'd say for the most part is we're on the same page.
Nice. So on that note, we have kind of a segment that we like to do, which is called your too dad to quit moment. A moment where you were like, man, I am the dad. I am shining as a father. This is like one of my favorite moments I'm never going to forget. And we would love for you to share one of those moments with us.
So it's funny because like if I would look at those moments, I don't know that those are like, divorced dad moments.
No,
Right?
they're just dad moments.
Right.
It doesn't have to be after
So
the
like,
divorce.
so to me is first of all having my daughter, right? That was my first child 19 years ago. I was 23 years old, and holding her in my hands, and I'd be like, there's literally nothing in this world that I wouldn't do for her. And I think she would actually honestly tell you that today, because she knows that the struggles that she's had, and not good and bad, like, showing up. And my thing to my kids are, you show up for the people you love, and that's not only your parents, that is not only your siblings, but that is for like the people that are like your people. um and I believe all of my kids know that, and those are the things that I really want to like give over to them. So it's like holding your first child and feeling that. And I would say it's like it goes, to that, and really in every aspect, like in different stages. When you see a child or your child, struggle in anything, and you just want to be that dad. I'm going to make it better. And sometimes making it better makes it worse, right? Because like you need to teach that child to like be able to fix that problem themselves. But that's the initial gut reaction that I have every single time. Give me that struggle, give me that anxiety, give me that depression, whatever it is, God, give it to me. I will rise above. I don't want that on my child. Um, so I have those moments all the time in terms of like, different struggles that each of them have, and blessed, like there's not a ton of them. My kids are just really good kids, very smart kids, but there are moments in time where they are struggling, and you just like need to like stop what you're doing. Like there's been this year alone, there's been somewhat different struggles in our family dynamic. Some of it was with my children, some of it was with my ex, in terms of like health issues. And I was in Arizona, or I was in Los Angeles, and I needed to cut my 5-day weekend short by 3 days and fly home and show up for my family. And that's what we do. That's what, there isn't a down day. Like if my daughter calls me on a day that she's supposed to be with her mom, she's like, Dad, I need to come to your house. I'd be like, sorry, I got a date. No, like they just come over. Do you need me to pick you up? What do you want? What do you need? How do you need it? What do you like? What ice cream do you want me to pick up? Whatever it is, we show up. And And that to me is just being a good dad, a good parent, good human.
Yeah,
And that's
my
what
oldest
I hope.
says, and my oldest has been pushing back on me recently, where I'm like, clear the table, or can you help cook dinner? And she's like, no, I'm the kid. I'm like, yeah, and I'm the father who's supposed to teach you how to live on your own. So please go do the dishes. And it's been this I don't know, something about this year that it's she's 14 now, so that's our latest. And it, hey, can you go grab the clothes in the or clean up the bathroom or whatever? And the response is, no, I don't want to. I'm gonna go on my phone or go play in the park. And I say,
You
no.
know, the intriguing thing to that statement, I'd love to say, is that your daughter is super unique in that regard. She's not. In the sense where, like, I give you, like, my 10-year-old, who, since he was 7, I've offered my children $5 a week to make their beds and clean up their clothes on their floor in the evening and at night to make sure it's in their hamper. Pretty simple. Probably takes less than 5 minutes. It's $20 a month.
Yep.
My 7-year-old has never missed a month. Gets his 20. Not only that, like the first day possible, he's like, where's my $20?
Yep.
I have 3 other kids that have an easy $20. Now, granted, they do know that their dad is a pushover and pretty much get them whatever they want anyways, but it's an extra $20. And like, it's every day I have to go to, like, why isn't your bed made? It's like, what do I need to make my bed? I'm going to sleep in it tonight. Why do I need to put it in it's my room? If I want it messy, why can't it be messy? And I'd be like, first of all, there's going to be a time you're going to be living with other people, and it's not courteous. And also, I'm also a very big believer of the way that you set the tone of your day. So if you have the ability of being organized, that's the type of, like, you have the ability of, I won't say succeeding more or less in life. That's not necessarily true, but the idea is, like, set the tone for your day in your, in a more organized fashion. And 2/3, like, really 3/4 of the time, which is 3 out of 4 of my kids, take that with a deaf ear, and they're like, what do you know, Dad?
So this is the time to teach your son how to make a pretty penny. So,
really, what he should do is he should do it for his siblings.
That's what
and
I'm
then,
saying.
like, yeah, I gotcha.
That's what I'm saying.
No, my 13-year-old has been hustling baseball, basketball. I mean, I think he made like $3,000-4,000 this year about trading cards. So that's the crazy. He's like, Dad, you're only giving me $20. He's like, yeah, I'm making $3,000 on my own. I don't need your money.
Nice. Nice.
But but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
So we really want to, the whole idea of the podcast, you nailed it in the beginning, is to, we went through something, and if there's anything that we could do to make it better or easier or stop it, for anyone else who's going through it or thinking about going through a divorce. So any advice that you could share to someone who's thinking about it? We actually have 20% of our listeners are women. So, if it helps save one marriage or make this process easier for one person, it's worth it.
I mean, several things. It's always like a saying, like, it takes a village, and it does. And marriage takes a village, divorce takes a village, life takes a village, right? And just having good people, surrounding yourself with good people that you could trust. Be honest and open and honest with yourself, with your own flaws. Like, most people can't have a hard time understanding their part, but recognize there's always 2 parties, and try to see things from the other person's perspective. Seek help. At the end of the day, that's also, in divorce, seeking help is the idea. Is like, the hardest thing is you need 2 people to want to seek help. So whether it be you need both parties saying, I want it to work, I want to try. The moment where I realized, well, we tried, but that one wasn't willing to put in the continuous effort, that was when I was like, okay, we need to part, because I don't want my kids to see that, right? I don't want my kids to, that's not the way that I want them to view what marriage is. And it's not just 2 people living under one roof calling mom and dad. That's not marriage. That's not love. That's not intimacy. That's not like so if you're in a situation that it's dire, ask for help. If you need to bring in call the police, right? Whenever you call a doctor and it says, like, if you're in immediate danger, go seek help. So first of all, that and seek help, whether you're in that situation. And hopefully most people are not in that type of dire situation. But also seek help. Find your Chevys of the world, find your, Ben Yoels of the world that are willing. I have no problem, total honesty. You could post on your page my email address, or my Facebook account. Like, I honestly, if I could help anybody and everybody, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And that's kind of like morphed in Michigan's, like anybody who's going through, man or woman, going through it, I'll sit and grab a drink with you. Granted, I will tell you honestly, like, there's several like husbands that got angry with me that I went to drinks with their spouse because they thought I was taking them on a date, and I was really just helping them through their divorce.
Gets tricky.
But neither here nor there. So like, I will still do that all day long, because like, that's just like, I know who I am, and I'm going to help. I'm just somebody who's willing to help. The other thing is, I would tell you, is like, nobody wants to be talked down to. Nobody wants to be yelled at. Nobody wants to be. So if you're going to communicate with your spouse, which is the parent of your child, right? Like the father or mother of your child, that will not go well, right? So just like you don't want to be yelled at, don't yell at somebody. You want to communicate it, don't communicate it in front of your children. Do it in a safe spot. If you have to leave and get a babysitter and go discuss these things, so be it. Like, we don't yell in front of, I'm not a yeller in general. Like, we didn't have verbal abuse or physical abuse in my marriage. We don't have berating. Don't do that, because there's no positive outcome to it. Like, you try to use that as leverage, it ends up being like a negative. It'll come out as court as a negative. Look what they're doing. It won't make you look good. If you have the ability of going to arbitration versus using a bunch of divorce lawyers, again, nothing wrong with the divorce lawyers, but it's very expensive. And majority of the time, they're the ones that are like making out better than necessarily what you're making out. In many instances, you need it because you just can't communicate. But also recognize if and when this is the right thing for you. There is life after. The world is not ending. You are going to be okay. Some people, it'll take 6 months. Some people will take a year. Some people will take 3 years. But there is life after divorce. It is, and I would just say it's hard to have a positive outlook because you're going through something so traumatic. But I would tell you is reframe. It's like we're starting over. There's a lot of positives, like to having your own time. There's a lot of positives focusing your energy on your children, on your career, and don't have you'll always have woe is me, but don't inwardly blame yourself. It's so easy to be like, oh, if I did this differently, this wouldn't have happened. There's no one instance. I mean, sometimes there may be, but like majority of the times, there's no one instance that led to this, or one instance that could save this. You have to do your part, and just recognize also is for future relationships, dig deep, go back, look back at what happened, and how do you see yourself? What did you do wrong? You're not trying to fix it anymore. Well, how could I personally become a better person, better father, better human, better colleague, better friend? What are the things that I was missing? What are the things that and being able to do that work. It's funny. I had a conversation with somebody on a dating app recently, and she's like, I only date divorced dads. And I'm like, it's so interesting. She's never been married, no kids. She's like, they've done the work. None of the single guys do the work.
Wow. All right. That's
awesome.
a
first.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. So watch out actually for her. No.
Wow. So. Thank you. And we didn't get into what you're doing now. Is it the same job you've had the whole time since you were out of college, or is this a new venture? What are you up to now? Because we do like to also highlight, that you guys, dads that were able to succeed and continue life after. And so, from what I understand, you've been able to do that, and we'd like to hear a bit about that as well.
So again, like I think anything can derail something positive. So we have the ability of saying, is this the end of the world?
Hmm.
or is it not? I did not believe my divorce was the end of the world. Now, didn't mean that it was easy. Didn't mean that didn't have a hard time with a number of these things. So yes, right out of college, I worked at UBS as a financial advisor, and I worked with my cousin Howard, who's an amazing guy who's about to retire. And I worked with him for 2.5 years. I then moved on to a larger team within UBS. They then started their own company. I stayed on. And again, over time, it's good, bad, the ugly happened. I actually lost my job once, and that was like tough because I had after long story, I had to sue the company but ultimately that was actually the worst part of my life. I was like, oh my God, like I always thought I was going to be at a company for 30 years. My dad was at a company for 30 years. Um, and, and like my boss was throwing me under the bus for something that he was supposed to do. And again, I was able to overcome that. And I was able to do that with the love and help of my parents and my in-laws and my spouse at the time. But I just had my second child, and I just bought my first house, lost my job.
Wow.
What do you do?
Wow.
So you step up. I got on the phone. I called the people that I knew in the industry. Within 6 weeks, I had a new job at JP Morgan. And all of my clients from UBS came with me, which was a testament to me what I believe is me as a human. And then I was at JP Morgan for 6 and change years, and I moved my practice to Morgan Stanley. That was right around the time. So that was in 2011, I believe. I was there for just under 12 years, 11 and change years. and now I'm at Wells Fargo Private Client Group. So ultimately, along the way, I started out with no clients. And along the way, now my team and I manage just under $1 billion of client monies. And,
wow.
and year over year, and it's not, I don't want to say it's anything to do with the divorce, but at the end of the day is, the last 6 years I've grown my business significantly. And I wouldn't say it was definitely harder there because I was going through emotional trauma. It's harder. My father was sick for a good year. But I also had extra time during those days. I now travel more and see my clients more often. Like I said, I have clients in 31 states and 4 countries. I get to see them for longer periods. Like tomorrow morning, I have a client meeting I'm in Florida. I was actually just in Florida like 2 weeks ago, seeing 4 or 5 clients. I'm here for vacation now, but I'm seeing a couple of clients. I'm seeing a prospect tomorrow. And yeah, very, very blessed to be able to grow my business and grow my practice and constantly be able to do that in face of all these, let's call them, the hardship. But I think those were like choices. And again, these are things. I'm too young to sit tight. I'm too young not to work. I'm too young and I want to model. I want to model like a good work ethic to my children. I want to model a good, to me is like, I also happen to love what I do. Like there isn't a day where I'm like, market goes up, market goes down. And it's been a really shitty, tough year. I've been more therapist than advice. I mean, which is part of my job is I don't want to say therapy, but part of my job is make sure people make the least amount of bad decisions.
Right.
And then just like, lean in and invest and stay invested. Cause like, you make money in time. You don't make you're never going to make all of your wealth in one market. Right. And again, I've learned a lot of that over the course of time. I'm in one of those jobs that I could see myself like, I don't want to say dying at my desk. Like life is good. I'm blessed. I get to go see the world and see my clients. But it's also equally hard. I just lost 4 clients. I had 4 deaths, which means 4 family members. 4 of my family members passed in the last 6 weeks. And I say family members are not my dad, it's not my mom, it's not my brother, it's not my sister, but people that I've been working with their families for 15, 16, 17 years. Or some of my clients lost a son, which is like losing, again, like it's an appendage. Like, so like those things are hard. But like, again, like it can make you want to stop. It can make you want to pivot. It can make you, but like, I don't know. This is one of my passions is multi-generational planning. I get to work with client, with grandparents, with kids, grandkids, great grandkids. I've been to, in April, I was at one of my clients' great grandson's wedding. I travel
Wow.
with him. I hike with him. He's 10 years younger than I am. They actually just texted me today. They're now having a child. They're due
Wow.
June 23rd. I'm not going to name the name because I don't know if they're announcing to everybody else
I was
yet.
about to say, here comes a new Bryan in the world.
Yeah. But that was like literally, I dealt with this person's great grandfather. They're the new, that's new child's great grandfather. So like that to me is super cool. They're like, we're going to have to open up a 529. That's cool to me.
Wow. Yeah, I think I need to have you sit down with my son because our conversation today was, hey, I just made all this money off my bar mitzvah and I don't want to put it in the bank because in the bank it makes no money. So I want to just keep it in my wallet. And then I tried to explain to him that the bank is a little better than your wallet. And he's like, fine, I'm just going to put it in the wallet of my father, in the bank of my father, and he can handle my investments for now. So maybe you guys should have a longer conversation because I tried to explain to him, if you take that money and you invest it into the right things, then you get a higher yield than you do if you're just putting it in the bank. But he opted for the bank of the father. So we might have to talk soon. Yeah.
First of all, at least the bank of the father at the moment with interest rates, depending on, put it in the money market. I don't know in Israel how it works, but I'm told that in Israel, like you could get like 6-7% now in the bank.
It's just complicated being American and Israeli.
Okay. So buy money market. But yeah, topic for another conversation. We'll have
we'll do a money advice.
We'll have a finance class on the next episode.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because honestly, that's the other thing to it. When and this is more for the women that are listening. For whatever reason, it's actually one of the last 10 years has been a big push in my practice where we bring all the spouses, like the wives, because for the last 20 years, or at least like the older generation of my clients was always husbands. I would say 90% husbands. So I had to force them to bring their wives. And their wives is like the husband does. I don't need to do what he does. And then unfortunately all the dads die first, or the husbands die first. Not always, but majority of them. And suddenly they're like, well, I don't know what to do. So-and-so used to take care of it. I'd be like, well, remember when I wanted you to come in every 3 months for the last 10 years? So highly recommend in your life. It's again, open, honest transparency, and sometimes, in divorce, people are like, oh, like it's somebody's always hiding something. Like, I don't know, you don't have to hide anything. And everybody should know what's going on in your life. And both, again, that's just, communication. It just goes back to open, honest communication. But finances are important. Understanding this stuff in marriage and in life are important.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on for a master class.
Yes.
So Bryan, really thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. It's been
Thank you,
a
Bryan.
wonderful conversation and
amazing
to catch up. I don't want to keep you away from
pleasure.
your kids for too long. But I do want to.
This is way longer than I thought. But it's fun. It's fun. It's good seeing you.
Yeah. And before you go, I just wanted to tell everybody that we are open to sharing your story, and please visit us at toodadtoquit.com, on social, toodadtoquit, toodadtoquit podcast. You can find us anywhere. We really want to help and share your story. If there's any topics you want us to cover, please let us know. Please reach out to us. Again, we're here to help you, and thank you for listening. Until next week. Thank you for listening to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Available at toodadtoquit.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.